Does anybody have any questions? Any kind? Yeah.
You told us for the true power, true compassion, true wisdom, we need the correct practice.
Yeah.
And then so I vow and chant and pray and sometimes meditate, and lots of time I just learn the Dharma teachings and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But would it be very irrespectful if I say that there are many other ways, not only the Zen practice or Buddhist teachings, but for example, if there is a very sincere, humble physicist who is looking up the stars and the galaxies and is searching for the what's going on in the universe and everything, or somebody who research for the subatomic area, and then there might be one way of reaching, attaining, becoming enlightened. But if I say so, if I just suspect it that way, would it be too subversive? Or?
Absolutely not. The question is wonderful, and the direction of this question is also very good. Not only would it not be subversive, but it's wide-minded. So please don't think that the religious way or the spiritual way is the only way. Why? This universe is the teaching. We have to notice it. But sometimes we need some help. We need some aid for that. And many times it's not the quote-unquote religions that are the real helpers. Just looking into cause and effect very clearly, that was sometimes enough. My parents are doctors. So when they asked me, did I have any religion? I didn't. I was not brought up as a religious person, and now, even now, I do not consider myself as a religious person. When they asked me what I was when I was a little child, and later as an adolescent, what did I follow? I say, I was a diagnostic. Okay. Why? Every child copies the habits of his or her parents, right? So what did my parents talk about over the dinner table? They talked about the illness that they encountered on that day, the sickness, the cause of it, the end of it, and how to cure it. That's like the Four Noble Truths, okay? And what's really important, that they were not Buddhist, they were not Christian, they were not Catholics, they were not Muslims or Hindus, but they were really clear-sighted persons, clear-eyed persons, and this means wisdom which sees through. Daya means through, and Gnostic or Gnosticism means wisdom. The English word know is from the word gnosis. This is Greek. Okay? To know. Originally this means wisdom. So I was raised diagnostic because I copied the thinking patterns of my parents. And most children do. So what you say to your child is one thing, but the way you think and the way you feel, that's what the child will actually get, not what you say. Okay? So increasingly, over science, over social studies, over things that where you really recognize cause and effect clearly, you can learn more. You can learn more. Why? Traditions become old and sometimes not so useful. They are useful for some people, but if they become too conservative, they become useful for less and less and less people because they filter people more and more. Okay? And if it's hard to access a given spiritual tradition which reduced itself into religion, then people won't want it. Okay? Won't want it because it's complicated, it's hard, it puts more difficulties into your life instead of solving or helping you solve the problems. Okay? So it is true that just by being a person with these good qualities, wisdom, compassion, and true strength, and doing your everyday life, you are doing your job. But the question is, if you lack these qualities, or it's not enough what you've got, how do you develop them? And that's when practicing, true spiritual practice, comes to the front. First priority. And our meditation, which we call Zen, is not the property of Buddhism. We have to know that. It has been practiced over many traditions, but it wasn't called Zen. It was called something else. In Korean, Son. In China, Chan. In India, called Dhyana. Okay? Many places, many names. And the no-thinking part, the becoming one part, is wider than Asia. You know, in Islam, there is a Sufi, branch, which is the mystical, esoteric branch of it. They have many interesting practices, and all of them are very compassionate and very peaceful people, because with the Sufi practices, you really become one with the world. Okay? And in Hinduism, there are countless of these, and I have to mention one great Hindu teacher who already passed away, but his teaching is shining bright. He's called the Zen Master of the Hindus, and his name is Sri Ramana Maharishi. Okay? And there are many Maharishis, so please don't be confused about it when you look at the internet. But if you look at him, Sri Ramana, Maharishi, and you read some of his books, that's like Zen Master. Totally. He was 16 when he left home, and he went to Arunachala, the holy mountain, and he never left. He stayed there. And that's, when you get close to what he says, it's as pure and clear as anything can be on earth. Okay? So that's why I say this is not the property of a certain culture, religion, creed, race, color, whatever. No. It comes from our basic human substance, from our true self. And that's why it can be developed in every single culture. Okay? It's universal. And as a sideline to your question, I always ask people, if you're religious, attain what your religion talk about. So if you're Christian, attain God. If you're Catholic, attain God. If you're Buddhist, attain Buddha. If you're Muslim, attain Allah. Because then these qualities should come. Because all these names point to the same substance. Okay? But if people only put forward thoughts, at the thinking level, these religions are different, then they will be arguing forever. Okay? So at the thinking level, at the cognition level, there will be no peace. People can tolerate each other, but that's a distance, and we respect that distance, and that's it. If you go close, you start to talk, there's opposites. And these opposites can only be transcended and then harmonized. It's really important. Okay? So attain the substance of your own religion. And how can you do that? Look at history. The last 2,500 years. Great teachers appeared. Many. In many parts of the world. In Asia, in Europe, but mainly in Asia. And then one in Europe. And they established many, many teachings. They never thought of schools, they never thought of religions. They talked directly to the heart of humankind. And they established really important teaching schools, and they were all spiritual teachers. Spirituality as something which helps you attain your true self, which helps you experience something. It doesn't work with preconceptions. It teaches from the material that's available, right there. Okay? It doesn't give you dogmas. It doesn't give you anything which you just have to believe but couldn't experience. So with spirituality, experience or attainment. Attainment comes. And this attainment is don't know. In whatever fashion, in whatever clothing, in whatever way you want to see it. So spirituality works with experience, kyongkhom, okay? And that's based on your attainment of what your religion, what your tradition talks about. Now, as time goes on, and you can come to the present day, spirituality becomes old. It becomes organized. It has real estate, money, power, interests, many things, okay? Most of these teachers started out with one bowl, one robe. That was it. And look what they have done in terms of generations, okay? What they have become, these teachings, okay? Everywhere, no exception. When spirituality gets old and heavy and loaded with everything that mankind makes, they become religions. And religion is based on belief. Okay? 믿는 것. This is belief. And this belief sometimes prevents you from the experience. It tells you what to do. It gives you a worldview. It gives you a social framework. This is something you have to follow. Okay? So, it's just something, this is not really yours. This is yours. Okay? Okay? So belief, and instead of experience, there is thinking. And this thinking goes into dogmas. And a dogmatic view is a limited view. Okay? Instead of the experience of your true self, you get all these textbooks and everything, and you have to study that. And they become dogmas. So, what is the real way of functioning in any historical era? The real way is return to our true self, return to our true spiritual practice, whatever framework you are in, okay? Whatever big school or big religious, denomination you are in. Renew your practice by returning from the religious view to the spiritual view, okay? Return from the belief and the dogmas to experience and attainment, because that's what gives you true power, wisdom, and compassion. With this, you are dependent. I just put a big D here, which means dependence. With this, you become independent. Okay? You become independent. And this kind of independence means that you and this universe truly become one. Nobody controls you. Nobody tells you what's right and wrong. You experience what is correct. You experience this oneness and what comes out of it. Okay? So I think that these days, when 6.6 billion humans produce so many kinds of problems, to really get down to the root and start to solve them, please get rid of your religion and return to spirituality. It's the way to start. And then everything else can be solved. But if our self-image and experience of ourselves, if our world image and the experience of the world does not become clear, we remain ignorant. We remain in a cloud of ignorance. And that produces more anger and desire. That's why it's vital. And I hope it doesn't seem to be something abstract or theoretical. If you practiced anything, even for 10 minutes, and you see how the mind changes, then you understand the importance of this. Okay? So you don't have to change your clothes, you don't have to change your hairstyle, you don't have to change anything. Change your mind. And that means evolution. Then humankind will go towards enlightenment in various fashions and in various denominations, following various religious practices, because in fact they are renewed into spiritual practice. Okay? Without preconceptions, prejudices, dogmatic views, utter conservatism, without beliefs, but experience and attainment brings you faith. Because what you experience and attain, you can have faith in that. That's true faith. Mostly it goes without words. It functions. It shines. It helps. But without this, it's not possible. Okay? More questions?
Can you can you tell us more about the Korean collective mentality? Like you said, we have more we-oriented rather than I-oriented, right?
Oh yeah, especially these days. I mean, I visit Asia at least once a year, mostly twice in the last 2-3 years, and it's a sharp contrast between the West. You enter the Chiachol, okay, the subway, and still people are ready to kind of move in their seats, to kind of recognize you, to kind of consider you as part of the group right away. In the West, you're a piece of object. And when people kind of, in rush hour, they kind of scramble for their way, and it's crowd, and so it's taken many times personally that you go against them. Here, I had the opportunity to be totally squeezed and crowded, but I didn't feel assaulted, okay? Because people didn't put their anger into the crowd, okay? This is really interesting. Next, in the street, people still pay attention to each other, okay? It's amazing. And you can move in a large crowd basically unhindered if you really just put down your I, my, me, and you just flow. You flow with the crowd, and then it's not a kind of tumultuous experience, not an oppressive experience, although you are in a crowd physically. Okay? And there are many instances when people are just sensitive to each other, when they really see each other, and they are ready to help each other in very, very unceremonial and everyday way. Okay? I usually put my backpack up on the shelf on the subway, unless it's really empty and I go short distance. But mostly it's not empty and I go long distance, so I put it up on the shelf, on the rack. And what happens is that many times these straps, which you see at the bottom of the backpack, it's kind of hanging down. And if somebody sits, it's kind of here, okay? And sometimes it's crowded, and I put my backpack up, and I step away, and 30 seconds later, the strap poof, just goes down. And I don't want to scramble again, you know. And usually there's an ajuma who just steps in there and puts it up there and doesn't even look at me, okay? That's it. These small things, and it becomes big, you know. And usually when I meet people on that first time on that day and it's past morning, they ask me, "Have you eaten?" Okay, konyanghashaseo. It's not an empty phrase, and I don't think it's just for monks or nuns. Sometimes, of course, with your family, you ask. You have a true concern for somebody, okay? And it's actually amazing how it can be coded and educated into society, and then people have the recognition throughout their experience what it means to relate to each other, what it means to really help each other. It's not something passionate, it's not something dramatic, it's not something so emotional. It's very practical, very much everyday, and it happens all the time. It's very simple. I know 3 sisters. One of them used to be Shindo at the temple where I stayed. And they treated us for tea. They knew us. They came for our classes, some of them for our retreats. And we knew about their lives. And one said, "Well, 3 of us are now living together in one apartment." I said, "Okay, that's great." And then, how many of you work? He says, 2. Sorry, 1. The other was studying at university. And the third one was looking for a job, but she couldn't find it. And I said, "How do you manage?" And she says, "My salary is enough." And I looked at her and said, "What? 3 of you live out of one salary, so how do you manage that?" I said, "Well, we have enough to eat, we have enough to go to the city, we have enough that she could study and the other could look for work, and now I have a job." And I said, "And how does this work in the long run?" In the long run, she says, when she gets a job, she helps us back. When she finishes her studies, she helps us back. And then it turned out later she established a gallery and she needed a lot of cash. And indeed, her sisters, at least one of them, directly helped her back, and the other one started to work for her. Remember? So this is truly, we call it the social equation, you know. You live in a family and you recognize that, and you don't want to just split away and become an individual as soon as you can, because that's usually the thing in the West, become an individual. Successful, bright, strong, and satisfied individual. Ooh, that's a difficult one. Okay? Because without the family, without the group around you, you can't do that. That's why there's so many opposites in the West. Okay? So I could tell you endless stuff, and let me just come back to my family, the monk's family. Earlier I mentioned that this October in Chichisa there was a level 3 training. And there were like 70 monks there. And we had Jidebang living style, which means you have nothing, just your most personal necessities. You are nobody, basically, because your identity doesn't count. And you are nothing because whatever you want personally is irrelevant. You are there for the teaching. You are there for the training. So your individuality is reduced to 0. Now, I stayed with 10, 12, sometimes 15-year bhikkhus, okay? This is like top vintage, very ripe. So what does that really mean? That means that the family spirit is so clear that everybody, if we approached in the right way, had a sense of belonging together, although most of us have not seen each other before. But we had the same training elsewhere. Other temples, me in other continents also. So whatever little wisdom I got from that training, I used it in one way. I didn't open my mouth. I tried to have a sense of what we are. How do we belong together? And in very small ways, trying to help this community. Whatever was needed, but not much was needed. Basically what was needed, that people don't make anything special. Just do it, do it, do it, do it. Okay? When somebody brings your cushion, you bring their bowls. When you carry the tray, you really take care of your tray and maybe try to take another one so that the other person could take one more. Okay? When you put down the tea kettle, you put it down in such a way that the other person can easily take it up. It's all a matter of attention, compassion, consideration. Okay? And at the end, this kind of silent training, which was kind of sometimes talking, sometimes silent, this kind of training really exploded into joy because we finished it together. We finished it together and we were one family. And this was an amazing experience. Okay? A total sense of belonging. Okay? It was beautiful. It was really, really moving. And we remember what we've done and we remember each other. And next time we met, because I met a few of them after that, we were like true brothers. Okay? So I could tell you endless small things and a couple of big things, you know, how this works. Because it's really hard to tell fish what is the ocean, because you are in the ocean. You don't notice it. You do it. Okay? So please keep doing it and make it more and more clear. Make it more and more open and available for others. This is wonderful. Okay? More questions?
Could you explain about the cycle of rebirth in Buddhism? I don't know exactly about the concept. So, it's real or just conceptual?
So the question was, is reincarnation real or just a concept?
The human, the one person died, after that reborn.
Understood the question. Okay, so let me ask you, when you're hungry, what do you do?
Eat.
Correct, you get food. So when you want to be born, you get a body. When you're not hungry, what do you do? You don't eat, right? You don't get food. That means if you're free from dualism, if you're free from karma, you're not reborn. That's it. Don't ask me whether it's real or not, because real or not real are not applicable here. Do you make it or not? If you make it, you have it. If you don't make it, you don't have it. Okay, you make I, you make dualistic karma, you make mind, you have the need, the thirst for a body, for becoming a sentient being. So you're born. If you don't, you became an arahant, you became a Buddha, no matter what you call it, you became a saint. No matter what you call it, your desire, anger, and ignorance are gone. So your mind is extinguished. Read the Heart Sutra. Extinguished. And then, no but. And then, you, as an individual, are extinguished. No more rebirth because there's nothing to be reborn. Okay?
How can we keep that Dharma mind from moment to moment?
Moment to moment, return before thinking. Return before thinking, that means you return to Dharma. Clearly reflect this moment. What do you hear? What do you see? That's Dharma mind. Next is function. Somebody's hungry, give them food. Somebody's thirsty, give them drink. Room is dirty, clean it up. That's clearly the function of Dharma. Okay?
You told keeping Dharma mind, we should practice and practice.
Exactly.
Yes, and the practicing is only the way to get enlightenment and keeping Dharma mind.
What is practice for your consciousness? Tell me.
Meditation.
What is meditation?
I don't know.
Keep that Dharma wherever you go, whatever you do. Because sitting, standing, walking, lying down, dreaming, being a wakeful state, in silence, and talking, constantly without interruption. What is this? The great question has no words, remember. It is resulting in this clear mind, clear mirror mind, this moment. And then you have no I. Then, just this moment, what is my job? And at that point, enlightenment and suffering stop. Heaven and hell stop. Good and bad all stop. Okay? So, moment to moment, return to that mind. Technique doesn't matter. Originally, this has no technique. Zen is not a set of technical regulations how to behave or how to hold your body or what to think. It's not like that. If you understand this point, everything becomes practice very soon, but for that, you need to do some formal practice too. So formal practice brings up your potential. Then your potential is applied in everyday life. And then everything becomes practice. Okay? Good. Any more buts? No, thank you. More questions? Sure.
Can I make another one?
Question?
Yeah.
Any amount.
We, as an average people, we are not privileged to spend 90 days, in a Jidebang, whatever. We 10, 20, 30 Doban,
Yeah.
Dharma friends. So, what we can do to get that kind of sense?
You can do many things, Gosanim, because in Korea there are lay sonpangs where you can go and practice. In many temples they have 1 week programs or 1 weekend programs where you can practice. But I would like to kind of take away one myth. One myth is that if you want to practice the Dharma, you have to go to a temple. That is not true. You can practice the Dharma anywhere. In fact, most of our great teachers, they either went to a desert or to the riverbank and they were sitting under a tree most of the time. They didn't go to temples. They had no sunims. But most of us need that. So you can go to the temple and practice together because the Sangha element is really important. And the teacher, the Buddha element, is also important. And receiving correct introduction to the Dharma, to the teaching itself, is also important. But practice itself is not relegated to the temple only. At home, you can set up a Dharma room. You can sit with your friends every night. I can see many Koreans, living social life after, 8 p.m. and they are just in the streets and doing things, which is wonderful. But if once a week people come together and they meditate together, they don't have to go up to a distant place. In most temples, you just can't be after 8 p.m. if you don't live there, okay? Unless there's a special program or a special event. So do not attach to forms, practice forms. Learn the practice from the appropriate source and then share it with your friends. There are many Chamsonhui, many meditation or Buddhist associations where you can do it. So don't want the highest, which you perceive as the highest form, you know, the 90-day meditation, Jidebang, Doban Sunims, etc., etc., because you may not have it. Your situation is different. Most Buddhists are lay Buddhists, and it will remain so. So our job as Sunims is to really make it possible for you to practice with your situation as you are. It's my job too. First to encourage you and to actually ask you to reconsider, because you can practice in your own situation. All of you can. All it takes is really to restructure your day. It doesn't depend on outside circumstances. Restructure your day. And when you practice, for instance, with Sunims and other lay practitioners, then soon your practice energy will become strong enough so that your daily life can contain some explicit meditation practice. Look, I can tell you a very, very short recipe because everybody likes practical knowledge. Please do not take it as a prescription, but rather than just the ingredients of some really good food, some good meditation food, and you don't have to follow this if you don't want to. But what would it really take if you just devote half an hour for meditation and 10 minutes for chanting? That's 40 minutes in the morning. And if you want, you can do it in the evening to kind of empty out the day. And isn't that reasonable? I mean, we spend so much more time than that on much less useful things. Talking, for instance. So, look, if you just put a Buddha on one of the shelves and you put 2 candles and an incense holder, you have an altar. That's it. You make just one corner available in your apartment. Not a whole room, but if you can spare a room, then everybody can take it as their Dharma hall, little Dharma hall. Okay? So, 3 bows. 3 bows. That's it. That's the beginning. Then you do 10 minutes of chanting. Do the Panya Shimyon and do the Debiju. Okay? The Great Dharani. Then you sit for 30 minutes. Okay? So this is the Heart Sutra. And this is the Great Dharani. And then 30 minutes of meditation. We are up in 40 minutes. If you have 1 hour, instead of the 3 bows, do the 108 bows. I recommend this. Then you take a few minutes of break. You can do the chanting standing. And you are done with this within 1 hour. And your day is different. Your mind is different. You start really to get a grasp of what this moment is, what my job is, what is real human being. Okay? So don't expect that you would go to temples. Temples are busy places, you know. They have many programs, many kiddos, many chanting. Most of them don't have a meditation program for lay people, or they have it in a minority compared to other activities which have developed, you know, over the centuries. And they are also important. Honoring your ancestors, very important. Please keep doing that, no matter what people say. Keep honoring your ancestors. Remember the people who passed away. You can pray for your sons and daughters to get into university. There's nothing wrong with that. Please, continue. But remember that your own spiritual practice is something truly important, and nothing replaces that. So if during the day you can just do 3 bows, 10 minutes of chanting, and 30 minutes of sitting, you make a difference. But no holiday. Every day, okay? Then it's good. You make 1 day holiday, then the reasons, the smart reasons why you shouldn't do it next day will come again. Okay? So it is possible. You know, in the southern part of China, when Buddhism was persecuted, they were sitting in barns. They were sitting in the places where they stored the hay and the other kind of food for the animals. They were sitting there. And they did some serious practice there. So do not believe that practicing is only possible in temples. Do not believe that it can only be done in an organized way with a Sunim present. It is necessary sometimes. But most of the time, your own effort is required. And guess what? If you do this, your friends will ask after a time, what do you really do? So then you can say, and then you will join. They will join. So soon you will not practice alone, especially in Korea. You stop in the street and you start doing something, there's a bubble of people soon looking at you. What is it that you are doing? Right? That's the way it works. So, yeah, that's the way it is. So give yourself time every single day to practice a little. And this is not a lot. This is like a sitcom, a drama's episode, you know, except that you don't watch it on television, you clear it out inside. Okay? Last question. Nobody dares to ask. Professor, please. Professors are brave. Go ahead.
Somebody criticized the great emperor Ashoka because he gave up all the empire's power and turned to be Buddhist. Therefore, the empire's military power is weakened, and they rose the country. Then the Muslims occupied the empire, and they founded the Mughal empire. So some historians and some professors, they criticized because of great emperor Ashoka, we rose the Indian Hindu countries. I think the power is related to protect their own countries and maintain the Buddhist teachings. But in some cases, the Buddhists, they teach the lay people give up all the power, even the military power. So some countries, they lose their country. Is it a proper solution to maintain the country, or?
Not for you, Professor. It's not the correct solution. Because if you lose the country, you lose a lot. So we have to ask one clear question. If Ashoka didn't turn Buddhist, and he didn't turn into this peaceful emperor which he did, if he stays this really strong military kind of man, wouldn't the Muslims have invaded anyway? Wouldn't the Muslims have conquered North India anyway? Look at those military figures who have always maintained a grip on their power. Napoleon, Alexander the Great, many Caesars of Rome. They were not peaceful guys, but eventually their power was crushed by another one. And it started with the expansion. Because they expanded, they conquered many other lands, so they were conquered in turn. Okay? It's karma coming back. So, in this case, there is no solution. What is the solution? That you try to keep a very peaceful, a very compassionate, wise and strong society over these evolutionary means with a strong spiritual foundation. But you have to understand, on this earth, there is no ideal society, there is no ideal social solution, because in one way or another, we will create opposites and we will suffer. That's going to happen for the next couple of hundred, if not thousands of years, unless humanity changes its course completely. But it's not likely. We have to go through more suffering before we really want to wake up. Okay? So, in this case, it would have been prudent to keep a standing army. It would have been prudent in Ashoka's case to say, okay, if I do not keep the military capabilities, I'm no longer emperor, so please somebody take over. There are so many people who want power. Okay, so your power, your job, protect the country. Bye, I'm going into monastery and become monk. I mean, that's what Shakyamuni Buddha did. That's what Gautama Siddhartha did. That's why his father was so upset. I mean, he had the job to hand over the most powerful position of the Shakya clan. His son was going to be the emperor, you know. But he said, Dad, no thank you. I'm going. So he went into the forest. And in this case, of course, we cannot know better than Ashoka. Ashoka may have felt really bad because he actually had a lot of people killed during his conquests. So it was really, really important that he changed. And he did, but then he said, okay, I relinquish all commands, all posts, and the next person was either not there or they couldn't defend the country. However, I have to point out that all worldly powers are impermanent. The Romans didn't believe that. You know, the Habsburgs didn't believe that. Later on, the Germans didn't believe that, and the Soviets didn't believe that. That any extension of worldly power based on the strength of finance and military and political systems and all this is impermanent, because the way they are created is based on opposites. So that's the way they fall, through opposites means. Okay? If something is not built on opposites, then finish the sentence. Then it doesn't appear or disappear. Okay? That's why your true self doesn't appear or disappear. That's why what I'm talking about cannot be formulated in an external solution. Any solution is okay if it's done with enough clarity and maintained with compassion and wisdom. But as long as we don't have the non-dualistic quality in it, then we always have opposites, and these opposites will change, and then it goes down, because what goes up will come down. It's very clear. So it's essentially superfluous to want to build an empire. It's not necessary. We have a planet. That's our empire. Okay? And why do people still want that? And something shocking can come out of it. It's called insecurity. It's a feeling of fear and insecurity, or this excessive desire of power, which is the same thing, just flip the coin. Okay? You don't read it as insecurity, you read it as a thirst for power. It's the same thing. Okay? So if people really attained their true substance through whatever means, in whatever tradition, then their insecurity would be gone. Then they could really be true human beings, and they wouldn't concern themselves with these things that actually bring so much suffering to people. What do you call an island? What kind of name? Where does it belong? Okay? This whole world is an island. Why do we worry and argue and have a war over these lines and names and all these things? And why don't we really respect each other as we are? You know, this group has its specific characteristic, the other group also, the other group also. And then we recognize that, and we can respect that. And if it's mutual, it works beautifully. Okay? So emperors write their own destiny. They always fall, in whatever way. Okay? Ashoka was strange because he had the transformation of becoming a real kind of follower of the Buddha's path. So, ladies and gentlemen, I really hope that this occasion was also useful for you. I thank you for your attention, for your bright eyes and keen intellect, and I hope to meet you in 1 week, the last time when we have this Dharma talk in this library in this year. Thank you very much.